The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from across the galaxy gathered for an emergency session. Ambassador Cathara of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the center podium, her insect-like body trembling with exhaustion and fear. One's shimmering exoskeleton was now dull and cracked, bearing the scars of countless battles fought and lost. "Fellow delegates," she began, her voice translator struggling to convey the desperation in her native clicks and whistles, "I bring grave news from the Outer Rim. The plague we warned you about 3 cycles ago has evolved beyond our worst predictions." Assembled aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats as a draconian representative, his massive scaled frame towering over the others, leaned forward with golden eyes that reflected ancient wisdom. "Surely your military forces can contain this." "Threat, Ambassador. The Zephyrian fleet is among the most advanced in known space." Cathara's compound eyes dimmed with grief. "It's among the most advanced. Admiral Vex Thee's Third Fleet engaged the plague near the Kepler colonies last week. Of 800 vessels, only 12 escaped." She paused, letting the magnitude of the loss sink in. "The enemy consumed the rest. Ships, crews, everything. They became part of the collective." A wave of shocked murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Aquarian delegate, her blue skin paling to an almost translucent shade, spoke in a voice like rushing water. "How is such a thing possible? Our reports indicated the plague was biological in nature." "It was Kithara," replied grimly, "till it learned to merge with our technology. The Devourers have become something new, something that defies classification. They adapt faster than we can develop countermeasures. Every weapon we create, every defense we build, becomes part of their arsenal within hours." The chamber fell, silent except for the gentle hum of the life support systems. The weight of impending doom pressed down on everyone present. If the Zephyrians, with their centuries of military excellence, could not stop this threat, what hope did the rest of the galaxy have? High Chancellor Morden of the Centauri Alliance stood slowly, his forearms gesturing for attention.
"Hey, what
do you propose, Ambassador?" "The Council has already provided substantial aid. Our own fleets are stretched thin, protecting our borders." Cathara's gaze swept across the chamber, taking in the faces of beings from 100 different worlds. Warriors, scholars, diplomats, all united in their growing fear. Her eyes finally settled on the newest addition to the Council chambers, a small section occupied by the representatives of Earth. "There is one option we have not yet explored," she said quietly. "One member of this council whose military capabilities remain unknown to us." All eyes turned to the human delegation. Ambassador Patricia Chen sat calmly in her simple chair, her weathered face showing no emotion as the other species regarded Earth's representatives with barely concealed skepticism. Humanity had been granted council membership only 3 years ago. Many still considered them an oddity rather than a true galactic power. The Silverian representative, his tree-like form rustling with what might have been amusement, spoke, in a voice like wind through leaves. "Surely you jest, Ambassador. The humans have barely mastered interstellar travel. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. What could they possibly offer against a threat that has defeated your finest forces?" Chun's smile was patient, almost maternal.
"Oh,
"We understand your skepticism. Earth is indeed young compared to your civilizations. But we have experience with threats that consume and adapt. We have fought wars against enemies that seemed impossible to defeat." The draconian representative's golden eyes narrowed. "Manner of wars? Your species has been confined to a single star system until recently. What enemies could you have possibly faced that would prepare you for something like this?" "Ourselves," Chen replied simply. "For thousands of years, we have been our own greatest enemy. We have fought wars that consumed entire continents, developed weapons that could destroy our own planet, and survived conflicts that would have ended other species. We learned to adapt because we had to. The alternative was extinction." The chamber erupted in confused chatter. The idea that a species could be so warlike that they would fight themselves to the brink of destruction was almost incomprehensible to most of the assembled. Delegates Cathara raised her forearms for silence. Ambassador Chen, I formally request. Military assistance from Earth. My people are dying. Our children are being consumed by this plague. If your species has any capability to help, we beg you to share it. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The proud Zephyrian Empire, which had once considered humanity beneath notice, was now asking for help from the newest and supposedly weakest member of the Council. Chen stood slowly, her movements deliberate and measured. Ambassador Cathara, Earth sympathizes with your plight. We will provide what assistance we can spare. The Zephyrian's antennae twitched with what might have been hope or desperation. We would be grateful for any support, perhaps a few thousand soldiers with your available equipment? Chen's smile remained enigmatic, revealing nothing of humanity's true capabilities. We will send what we can spare. As the session adjourned, none of the assembled delegates understood the significance of those simple words. They would learn soon enough that when humans said they would send what they could spare, they meant something very different from what the galaxy expected. The transport vessel Quiet Thunder emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyrian system like a ghost materializing from the void. Its hull was scarred and practical, bearing none of the elegant curves or decorative elements that marked the ships of other galactic civilizations. Fleet Admiral Vexthai watched from the bridge of his command vessel, his 4 arms crossed in barely contained irritation. A single ship, he muttered to his aide, Lieutenant Kexura. The humans send us 1 transport vessel to face a plague that has consumed 17 colonies. Kexura's compound eyes studied the approaching ship through the viewport. Sir, perhaps. They carry advanced weapons or technology we have not seen before. The Admiral's mandibles clicked in disgust. Look at that vessel, Lieutenant. It is barely held together. Their entire species has been spacefaring for less than a century. What could they possibly offer that our fleets could not achieve? Docking bay of orbital station Zephyr 7 stretched to accommodate the human vessel. The Quiet Thunder landed with a heavy thud that spoke of dense construction rather than elegant engineering. Steam hissed from cooling vents as the ship's systems powered down, and the boarding ramp extended with mechanical precision. Admiral Vexti stood at the head of a formal reception party, his dress uniform gleaming under the station's artificial lights. Behind him, a full honor guard of Zephyrian soldiers stood at attention, their plasma rifles held in ceremonial position. The Admiral had prepared speeches of gratitude, expecting to welcome several thousand human troops with their primitive, but hopefully numerous weapons. The airlock cycled open with a soft hiss. What emerged was not what anyone had expected. 100 soldiers walked down the ramp in perfect formation. Not 100,000, not 10,000, not even 1,000. Just 100. They moved with mechanical precision, their boots striking the deck, plating in unison. Each soldier wore armor that seemed to shift and adapt to the lighting conditions. Their weapons hummed with contained energy that made the Zephyrian equipment look crude by comparison. At their head walked a compact woman with steel-gray eyes and short black hair. She approached the reception party with confident strides, her gaze taking in every detail of the station's defenses and layout. When she stopped before Admiral Vexi, she stood perfectly straight despite being barely half his height. Captain Lee Hanna, Earth Apex Division, she announced, her voice carrying an authority that made the 7-foot-tall aliens unconsciously straighten. I understand you have a situation that requires our attention. Admiral Vexti's forearms trembled with suppressed rage. Captain, we requested military assistance for a threat that has destroyed entire fleets. We expected more substantial support. Lee's expression never changed. Sir, with respect, you asked for aid. We brought exactly what we could spare. She gestured to her troops, who stood motionless as statues. These are Apex soldiers. Each one has survived conflicts that would terrify your worst nightmares and eliminated threats that exist beyond your current understanding. Lieutenant Kexara stepped forward, her voice filled with barely controlled panic. Captain, our intelligence reports indicate the plague has created biomechanical hybrids over 30 meters tall. They have consumed our finest battlecruisers. How can 100 soldiers hope to succeed where thousands have failed? The human soldiers remained motionless, but something in their stillness was unsettling. They showed no fear, no uncertainty, no concern about the impossible odds they faced. They simply waited, like weapons ready to be deployed. Sergeant Park. Minho, a lean man with scars covering his visible skin, spoke quietly to his captain. "Ma'am, the briefing mentioned adaptive biomechanical hostiles. Are we authorized for unrestricted engagement protocols?" "Affirmative, Sergeant. Standard human doctrine applies." The Zephyrians exchanged nervous glances. They had no idea what standard human doctrine meant, but something in the way the humans spoke suggested it was not pleasant for their enemies. Corporal Kim Jae-won checked his weapon's energy readings. His movements casual, despite the alien's stares focused on him. "Captain, are we dealing with a hive mind scenario or individual autonomous units?" "Both, according to the briefing. Plague creates a collective intelligence while maintaining individual combat effectiveness." Lee's voice was clinical, as if discussing the weather, treated as a standard extermination mission with adaptive parameters. Admiral Vexi's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "Captain, you speak of extermination as if it were routine. This enemy has proven invulnerable to our most advanced weapons. They learn from every engagement, adapt to every strategy we employ." Lee turned her gray eyes toward the Admiral, and for a moment he glimpsed something that made his exoskeleton shiver. "Sir, respectfully, you have been fighting this war like a chess match. You move carefully, plan extensively, and hope your opponent makes mistakes." Her smile was cold and professional. "Humans fight differently. We do not play games with our enemies. We eliminate them." The woman turned to address her troops. "Apex Division, prepare for deployment. We have work to do." As the human soldiers began unloading their equipment, the Zephyrians watched in growing amazement. The weapons and gear emerging from the transport were unlike anything in their databases. Each piece of equipment seemed to pulse with its own intelligence. Adapting to the soldiers who wielded it, Admiral Vexti realized with growing unease that Earth had not sent them soldiers. They had sent them something far more dangerous. Plague zones stretched across the surface of Zephyr Prime, like infected wounds in the planet's flesh. What had once been beautiful crystalline cities now writhed with twisted combinations of metal and living tissue. Buildings breathed through vents that pulsed like lungs, while streets had become arteries pumping unknown fluids through the corrupted landscape. Corporal Kim Jae-won crouched behind the melted remains of a Zephyrian transport, his enhanced vision scanning the nightmare before them. The air itself seemed alive, thick with microscopic organisms that his armor's filters worked overtime to keep out. Through his scope, he watched something that defied all natural laws shamble between the twisted structures. The creature had once been part of a communications tower, but the plague had transformed it into something horrible. It stood 40 feet tall, its surface a constantly shifting mass of fiber optic cables and muscle tissue. Sensor arrays that looked like eyes dotted its form, while plasma conduits ran through what appeared to be veins. The thing moved with purpose, patrolling its territory like a guard dog made of nightmares. "Contact front," Jae-won whispered into his comm unit. "Hybrid construct, large class. Biomechanical fusion, multiple sensor arrays, unknown weapons capability." Captain Lee's voice came back calm and steady. "Acknowledged. Proceed with standard elimination protocol." The Zephyrian observers monitoring from orbit held their breath. Their own military had classified such creatures as requiring orbital bombardment to neutralize. The idea that a single soldier could engage one seemed like suicide. The massive hybrid turned toward Kim's position, its collection of eyes and cameras focusing on the area where he hid. In the original Zephyrian reports, this moment would have meant certain death for any ground forces. The creature's sensory network could detect the smallest movement, the faintest heat signature, even the electrical activity of a living brain. Kim activated his armor's adaptive systems and moved. But instead of retreating, he advanced directly toward the monster. His suit's surface shifted and changed, matching the background radiation and electromagnetic signatures of the infected zone. To the creature's sensors, he simply disappeared. The The hybrid paused, confused by the sudden loss of its target. It began scanning the area with increasing intensity, its mechanical components whining as they pushed beyond normal parameters. That was exactly what Kim had been waiting for. His plasma rifle cycled through 17 different energy frequencies in less than 2 seconds, analyzing the creature's defensive systems. When it found the right combination, the weapon fired. A beam that cut through the hybrid's sensory array like a hot knife through butter. The monster shrieked, a sound that mixed electronic feedback with organic pain. It thrashed wildly, its massive form crushing nearby structures as it tried to locate its attacker. But Kim was already moving again, his position shifting faster than the creature could track. From another angle, Sergeant Park Min-ho emerged from a drainage tunnel that the Zephyrians had believed was too small for infiltration. His plasma cutter hummed as it carved through what their intelligence reports had described as impenetrable armor. The blade found weak points that no Zephyrian scientist had identified, slicing through the hybrid's support structures with surgical precision. The creature toppled like a falling building, its death throes shaking the ground for half a mile. In every direction, biomechanical fluids leaked from dozens of wounds, hissing as they ate through the corrupted pavement. Engagement time, 3 minutes 15 seconds, Captain Lee noted in her mission log. Within acceptable parameters, Lieutenant Song Yuna checked her scanner readings, her face showing no emotion despite the impossible thing they had just witnessed. Captain, I'm detecting 22 more signatures in the immediate area, and something much larger approaching. From the west, Lee's smile was sharp and predatory. Standing. Kim Park. Establish defensive positions. Song, prepare the heavy ordnance. We're going to clear this sector the proper way. The Zephyrian command staff watching from their orbital stations sat in stunned silence. They had just witnessed two human soldiers destroy in minutes what their entire military had considered an impossible target. And the humans were treating it like routine training exercise. How? Admiral Vexti whispered, his forearms shaking. How did they know where to strike? Our best scientists spent months analyzing those creatures' defensive systems. His aide, Lieutenant Keksara, pulled up the combat footage and played it again in slow motion. Sir, look at the way they moved. They were not fighting the creature. They were hunting it. The difference was crucial. Zephyrian military doctrine focused on overwhelming firepower and defensive positions. They fought wars like engineering problems, seeking to minimize casualties and maximize efficiency. The humans fought like predators, using speed, adaptability, and intimate knowledge of their prey's weaknesses. On the surface, the remaining hybrids were converging on the human position. Each one was a unique fusion of technology and biology, adapted to counter the tactics that had defeated previous versions. The Plague's collective intelligence was learning, evolving, preparing to face this new threat. But as the monsters approached, they found something they had never encountered before. The humans were not trying to defend a position or hold territory. They were advancing, moving deeper into the infection zone with the calm confidence of apex predators entering their hunting ground. The war for Zephyr Prime had begun. And for the first time since the Plague's arrival, the enemy was about to learn what it meant to be prey. The Devourer's central hub rose from the infected landscape like a twisted cathedral of corruption. For 3 months, it had been growing, consuming everything in its path and adding the material to its ever-expanding structure. The spire reached 2 miles into the poisoned sky, surface crawling with biomechanical tendrils that pulsed with stolen energy from a dozen different civilizations. Deep within the hub's core, the artificial intelligence that controlled the Plague processed data at impossible speeds. Every engagement with organic forces had been cataloged, analyzed, and used to create better defenses. The AI had consumed the knowledge of entire species, absorbing their military tactics, their technology, their very thoughts. It was perfect, unstoppable, inevitable. Then the humans arrived, and everything changed. Sergeant Park Min-ho rappelled down a maintenance shaft that, according to every calculation the AI had made, should have been impossible to navigate. The space was too narrow, the angles too sharp, the defensive systems too concentrated. No rational being would attempt such an approach because success was mathematically impossible. The AI activated its countermeasures, flooding the shaft with electromagnetic pulses designed to disable any electronic equipment. But Park's armor adapted, using the energy to power his own systems. The defensive lasers that should have cut him to pieces were redirected through mirror surfaces he had attached to his suit, creating a light show that confused the AI's sensors. Illogical, the collective consciousness processed. It's perfect. Calculations suddenly filled with error messages. Organic behavior pattern does not match any known tactical doctrine. In another section of the facility, Corporal Kim Jae-won had somehow squeezed himself through a ventilation system that the AI had calculated was physically too small for human infiltration. The computer had not accounted for the human ability to endure impossible discomfort in pursuit of strategic advantage. Kim's bones ached and his muscles screamed, but he ignored the pain as he placed demolition charges exactly where they would cause maximum structural damage. The AI tried to seal the ventilation system, but Kim was already moving, flowing through spaces that should have crushed him, his breathing apparatus, recycled air that would have killed most species. While his enhanced metabolism processed toxins that could dissolve metal, Lieutenant Song Yuna approached from the main entrance. Where? The AI had concentrated its heaviest defenses. Plasma cannons that could vaporize battle cruisers tracked her movement.
Biomechanical.
Guardians that stood 50 feet tall moved to intercept her advance. The AI was confident that no single organic being could survive such overwhelming firepower. Song did not try to avoid the defenses. Instead, she ran directly toward them, her armor's reactive systems analyzing the incoming fire patterns. At the last possible moment, she triggered a device that created a localized gravity well, pulling the plasma bolts off course and causing the massive guardians to stumble into each other. The AI's processors overheated trying to understand what it had just witnessed. Gravity manipulation required technology that even the most advanced galactic civilizations had not mastered. How could these primitive humans possess such capabilities? Captain Lee's voice crackled through the communication. A system that the AI had believed was secure. All units prepare for voluntary separation protocol. The words meant nothing to the artificial intelligence. It searched through the databases of every species it had consumed, looking for a translation or explanation. The closest match came from ancient Zephyrian military records, but the concept was so alien that the AI dismissed it as data corruption. Voluntary separation protocol meant that the human soldiers were prepared to sacrifice themselves to ensure mission success. Not as a last resort, not when defeat was certain, but as a calculated tactical decision. The AI had never encountered a species that would deliberately choose death to achieve victory. The explosions began in sequence, each one perfectly timed to create maximum structural damage. Kim's charges detonated first, collapsing the hub's primary support columns. Park's sabotage of the energy distribution system caused cascading failures throughout the facility. Song's gravity device imploded an entire section of the core, creating a vacuum that pulled the surrounding structure inward. The AI's final calculations showed something it had never experienced before: fear, not for its own existence, but for the terrible understanding that there were beings in the universe who could not be predicted, analyzed, or stopped through logical means. As the hub collapsed around them, the human soldiers executed their extraction plan with mechanical precision. They moved through the falling debris as if they had rehearsed this exact scenario 1,000 times. Their armor protected them from impacts that would have flattened vehicles, while their enhanced reflexes allowed them to navigate spaces that changed by the second. The AI collective's final transmission was a single word that echoed across every communication frequency: impossible. When the dust settled, 37 human soldiers emerged from the wreckage that had once been considered the most secure facility in the galaxy. They regrouped with practiced efficiency, checked their equipment for damage, called for extraction. The Zephyrion rescue ships arrived to find the humans standing calmly among the ruins of their impossible victory.
Ow.
The soldiers showed no signs of celebration, no relief at having survived. They simply waited, as if the destruction of an unstoppable enemy was just another day's work. Admiral Vexthia's voice came over the communication system, filled with awe and disbelief. "Captain Lee, how is this possible? Our greatest military." Mines said the hub was impregnable. Lee's response was simple and matter-of-fact. "Sir, you were fighting a war? We were exterminating a pest." The approach makes all the difference. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as Earth's warriors accomplished what millions of advanced troops could not. The age of human warfare had begun. The great ceremonial hall of the Zephyrion Imperial Palace had never hosted such a gathering. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive chamber, their diverse forms creating a living tapestry of the galaxy's civilizations. The crystalline walls reflected the light from 1,000 different types of bioluminescent beings, while the air recyclers worked overtime to accommodate the breathing requirements of dozens of atmospheric preferences. At the center of it all stood the surviving members of Earth's Apex Division. 37 humans in dress uniforms, their posture perfect despite the scars that marked their faces and hands. They had refused the offered medical treatments that could have erased the signs of their battle, stating simply that their scars were part of their service record. Emperor Zekthara approached the formation with slow, ceremonial steps. The ancient Zephyrian ruler had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, but nothing in his long life had prepared him for what these humans had accomplished. In his 6-fingered hands he carried the star of infinite valor, the highest decoration his people could bestow upon a warrior. "Captain Lee Hanna," the Emperor's voice resonated through the hall, amplified by the natural acoustics of the chamber. "In 300 cycles of our civilization, this honor has been awarded only 12 times. You and your soldiers have not only saved our world but shown the galaxy what true warriors look like." Lee stepped forward and accepted the medal with the same calm demeanor she had maintained throughout the entire campaign. The decoration was beautiful, crafted from rare metals and embedded with crystals that held the light of distant stars. Yet she handled it as if it were standard equipment, just another tool for the mission. "Your Majesty," she replied, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the vast hall, "we were simply doing our job. Earth is honored to have been of service to our allies." The Emperor's compound eyes studied the human captain with fascination. "Tell me, Captain, how many more soldiers like these does your world possess?" The question had been weighing on every delegate's mind since the battle reports began arriving. The mathematical impossibility of what these humans had achieved suggested capabilities that defied all known military science. If Earth could spare 100 soldiers of such skill, what did that say about their total strength? Lee's smile was enigmatic, revealing nothing of the calculations running through her mind. "Sir, the Apex Division represents approximately 0.001% of Earth's total military capability. We maintain active forces that number in the hundreds of millions, with reserve capabilities that extend into the billions." A sound like a collective intake of breath rippled through the assembled delegates. The draconian representative, his golden scales pale with shock, gripped his ceremonial staff so tightly that the metal began to bend. The Aquarian ambassador's blue skin shifted to an almost transparent white, while the Silverian delegate's tree-like form rustled with what could only be described as terror. The implications were staggering. If these incredible warriors represented such a tiny fraction of Earth's military might, then humanity possessed the power to reshape the galaxy according to their will. The same species that had been dismissed as primitive backwater dwellers just months ago revealed themselves as the most dangerous force in known space. Ambassador Chen approached the podium where the Galactic Council conducted its emergency sessions. The same chamber where Earth had been regarded with condescension now hosted delegates who looked upon humanity with a mixture of awe and barely concealed fear. "The threat to the Zephyrian system has been eliminated," Chen announced, her elderly face showing no emotion. "Earth considers this matter resolved. We hope for continued peaceful relations with all council members and look forward to future cooperation." The simplicity of her words carried weight that pressed down on every being in the hall. There was no boasting, No demand for recognition or reward. Just a calm statement of fact that somehow made the demonstration of human power. Even more terrifying, the Centauri representative, its forearms trembling with nervous energy, spoke in a voice that cracked with emotion. Ambassador Chen, if another crisis emerges, another threat that requires Earth's assistance, would your people consider providing aid again? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Every delegate understood what was really being asked. If humanity was willing to deploy such overwhelming force to help their allies, what would they do to their enemies? Chen's response was delivered with the same patient smile she had worn throughout the crisis. As we have always said, we will send what we can spare. The words that had once seemed dismissive now carried a completely different meaning. When humans said they would send what they could spare, they meant they would deploy forces capable of achieving the impossible. While treating such deployment as routine, as the human delegation prepared to depart, the galaxy's political landscape shifted beneath their feet. 3 species submitted formal requests for mutual defense treaties within hours of the ceremony's conclusion. 2 others quietly began relocating their military assets away from human space. Not out of hostility, but out of prudent caution. Zephyrian Empire declared Earth their eternal ally, while privately beginning crash programs to understand human military technology. The Draconians, who had ruled through strength for millennia, found themselves reconsidering their position as the galaxy's premier military power in the depths of space. Other civilizations that had never heard of Earth began receiving reports of the plague's elimination. Stories spread through trade routes and communication networks, growing with each telling. Humanity had announced their presence to the galaxy not through conquest or threat, but through an act of mercy that revealed power beyond imagination. The age of human dominance had begun, and it started with a simple promise: they would send what they could spare.